The Prince of the River Part 2, Episode 9, Between Two Worlds. The Naga realm was nothing like Aran had imagined. It was neither endless marble halls nor alien depths, but something in between, an uncanny blend of river and palace. The floors shimmered like wet stone, yet his bare feet never sank. Light filtered through veils of water that weren't truly water, illuminating walls carved with shifting patterns that almost seemed alive. It was beautiful, overwhelming, and unsteadying all at once. Kai, the servant Niran had appointed to watch over him, walked patiently at his side. Younger than Aran by a year or two, with quick eyes and quicker words, Kai carried himself with easy familiarity. Where the Naga prince was reserved, Kai was full of commentary explaining which corridors led to the council chambers, which pools were off limits, and which hallways would eventually circle back on themselves if Aran got lost. "You'll learn to tell when the palace is awake," Kai said, leaning in conspiratorially. "It shifts sometimes, like the current. Best not to wander alone until you get the sense of it." Despite his easy grin, Aran noticed the way Kai occasionally glanced over his shoulder, as if measuring the distance to danger. Aran listened, nodding, grateful for the chatter. He found himself asking questions about how the Naga lived, about their rituals, about the carved serpentine motifs that lined every corner. Kai never seemed to mind, answering readily. In Kai's company, the weight of everything, the spirits, the mark, the strangeness felt less heavy. But it was when Niran appeared that the world tilted again. The prince came silently, as though the halls bent to let him pass. His expression in front of others was always composed, unreadable. Yet when the three of them ended up alone in some quiet alcove where the river's hum filled the silence, Aran saw something else. A shadow of tiredness beneath Niran's eyes, a fleeting curve of his mouth that might have been a smile, and once, when their gazes locked across the dim chamber, the warmth of something deeply human. Those glimpses unsettled Aran more than the glowing eyes or the impossible halls. The mark on his arm pulsed faintly whenever Niran drew close, as though reminding him of everything unspoken between them. That night, lying in the chamber Kai had prepared for him, Aran wondered which was more dangerous: the Naga world outside his door, or the quiet storm building inside his chest. Every time Niran looked at him, not as a prince, not as a spirit, but as if he were simply a man. Episode 10, Whispers Beneath the Current. Life in the Naga palace flowed around Aran like the river itself. Every day, Kai guided him through chambers that shimmered with impossible light, walls etched with carvings that shifted when he wasn't looking. Some of the patterns resembled serpents coiling endlessly. Others looked like eyes watching. Yet it wasn't only the architecture that unsettled him. It was the people. The Naga servants bowed low to Niran, voices hushed, eyes carefully averted. Aran noticed that no one ever looked directly into the prince's face unless spoken to, as though his gaze carried weight too heavy to bear. To Aran, who had already met those golden eyes and seen their quiet warmth, the deference was almost jarring. At meals, he sat apart, with Kai at his side. The hall echoed with strange, silvery voices, Naga nobles draped in iridescent cloths that shimmered like fish scales. Their words curled like smoke, half in language Aran understood, half in tones that weren't quite human. Sometimes, he caught fragments, disputes about territory upriver, whispers about restless spirits, talk of alliances. Niran presided at the head of the chamber, silent more often than not, his expression carved from stone. Aran wondered how much he kept hidden behind that mask, how much was demanded of him as prince. One evening, Kai leaned closer, murmuring so softly Aran nearly missed it. "They're restless. The boundary between our world and yours has been thin. Attacks like the one you suffered aren't isolated anymore. Some blame the spirits. Others..." Kai's eyes flicked toward Niran. "Others say the prince has drawn danger by interfering where he should not." Aran stiffened. "Because of me?" Kai's silence was answer enough. Later that night, Aran passed a shadowed hallway and paused. Beyond the carved arch, he glimpsed Niran speaking with two elders, voices low, tense. He caught only fragments: responsibility, the mark, risk. Then Niran's voice, cool as the river at dawn. I will not let him or anyone to be harmed. Something in the words tightened Aran's chest. The Naga world was beautiful, yes, but it was a kingdom built on undercurrents, power, politics, and secrets that pressed as heavily on Niran as the river itself. For the first time, Aran realized how fragile his place here truly was. Episode 11, The Quiet Between. The palace slept in hushed currents. Aran lay awake in his chamber, listening to the faint ripple of water against unseen walls. His thoughts churned with Kai's warnings, with whispers of danger, with the memory of Niran's voice declaring, "I will not let him or anyone to be harmed." He rose, restless, and found himself wandering the palace's dim corridors. Moonlight, if it was moonlight, filtered through the translucent ceiling, painting the halls in shifting silver. He turned a corner and froze. Niran stood alone at the edge of a vast pool, his reflection scattered across the rippling surface. He was out of his formal robes, dressed in simple dark cloth, his hair loose around his shoulders. For once, he didn't seem like a prince or a spirit, just a man carrying a weight too large for one heart. Aran hesitated, then stepped closer. The sound of his bare feet on the stone drew Niran's attention. Golden eyes lifted to him, sharp at first, then softening. "You should be resting," Niran said quietly. "I couldn't sleep." Aran swallowed, unsure why the words trembled on his tongue. "Too many questions, too many things I don't understand." For a long moment, Niran said nothing. Then he gestured to the water's edge. "Sit." Aran sit down, the cool stone seeping through his clothes. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. At last, Aran spoke. "When I first met you, I thought you were simply a stranger. Then you pulled me from the river, and I thought you were some kind of miracle. Now," his voice faltered, "now I don't know what to think. You're too many things at once." Niran's gaze lingered on him, unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, his hand reached out, fingers brushing against Aran's wrist where the faint mark still glowed beneath the skin. The touch sent a shiver up Aran's arm. "You see too much," Niran murmured, "but not everything. Not yet." His thumb grazed the mark, gentle, lingering. "This bond, it wasn't meant to be so strong. Yet here it is, and I find myself." His words trailed off, golden eyes flickering with something unguarded. Aran's heart hammered. He didn't think, didn't weigh the danger, didn't care about politics or spirits or worlds colliding. He leaned forward, closing the space between them. Niran met him halfway. The kiss was tentative at first, soft, almost uncertain. But the moment their lips touched, the mark on Aran's wrist burned with warmth, spreading through him like fire and river light entwined. Niran's hand rose to cup his face, steady and reverent, as if he feared the moment might shatter. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the silence between them felt changed. No longer empty, but full of something fragile and undeniable. Episode 12, In the Stillness. The kiss lingered in Aran's mind long after their lips parted, like a flame that refused to die. For a heartbeat, he wondered if he had imagined it, if it had been only the restless trick of dreams. But Niran's hand still cupped his cheek, warm and steady, and the golden shimmer in his eyes told Aran it was real. Neither of them spoke at once. The silence was no longer heavy, but fragile, careful, as though one wrong word might break what they had just crossed into. Aran found himself smiling, nervous and uncertain. "So, this is what happens when I can't sleep." For the first time, Niran laughed, not the quiet, formal chuckle he used at court, but something soft and unguarded. It startled Aran with how human it sounded. "You make light of everything," Niran said, shaking his head. "Even when you stand at the edge of things you cannot yet comprehend." "Maybe," Aran replied, voice steadier now, "but I'd rather laugh with you than drown in the unknown." Something shifted in Niran's expression, tension loosening, the weight of duty slipping, if only for a moment. He lowered himself beside Aran, fully, their shoulders brushing. The small touch sent warmth spreading through Aran, more intoxicating than the kiss had been. The two of them sat like that for a long while. The world hushed around them. Niran spoke little, but when he did, it was not as a prince, not as a spirit, but as a man. He told Aran of the river at dawn, of how its song was different when no one else was listening. He admitted almost shyly that the palace walls often felt like chains, and that Aran's presence was the first thing in years to make them feel less suffocating. Aran listened, heart aching in ways he didn't have words for. This closeness, this gentleness. It was not the fire of passion, but the warmth of something deeper, a trust being carefully, painstakingly built. At some point, Niran reached for Aran's hand, their fingers entwining without ceremony. The mark on Aran's wrist pulsed faintly where their skin touched, not burning this time, but glowing like a quiet heartbeat. When exhaustion finally began to pull at Aran, Niran guided him back to his chamber. He didn't leave right away. Instead, he lingered at the doorway, golden eyes softened by something tender, something almost vulnerable. Rest, Niran murmured. You are safe here. Episode 13 is in the dark. The memory of Niran's lips lingered on Aran's mouth long after he drifted into sleep. For the first time since he had stepped into the Naga realm, his dreams were not full of shadows and water, but warmth. But peace, as he would learn, never lasted long. Somewhere beyond the chamber walls, a sound stirred a faint rustle of movement, too deliberate to be the water's natural shifting. When Aran woke to the morning glow filtering through the palace's strange light, he thought nothing of it. But by midday, the air felt different, heavy. Watching, Kai arrived with a tray of food, his usual cheer dampened. He set it down without his playful chatter, eyes flicking toward the door as if measuring shadows. What's wrong? Aran asked, uneasy. Kai hesitated. Do you trust me, Aran? Yes, Aran said without thinking. Kai's jaw tightened. Then you should know the walls here. They have eyes. Someone saw you last night. Aran's heart slammed against his ribs. Saw what? The silence between them told him enough. Heat crawled up his neck, part shame, part anger, part something rawer, fear. Before he could speak, the door slid open. Niran stepped inside, his expression composed, but his eyes flickered toward Kai in a way that silenced any protest. Kai, leave us, Niran said softly. The servant bowed quickly and slipped out, tension trailing after him like smoke. When they were alone, Aran forced out the words, is it true? Niran exhaled slowly, his posture still princely, though Aran could see the faint crack in his mask. Yes, it seems our closeness was not as private as we believed. His golden gaze caught Aran's, unflinching. And here, such things are not easily ignored. Aran swallowed, throat tight. Does it mean danger? It means whispers, Niran said darkly. It means others may question my judgment, my focus, my control. He took a step closer, his hand brushing Aran's arm protective, even in the midst of rising peril. Aran's chest ached with a mixture of guilt and defiance. You shouldn't be questioned because of me. Niran's jaw tightened. You are marked by me. You are mine to protect. But the moment others believe my heart is bound as well, the danger shifts. A silence hung, heavy with things unspoken. Then Niran's voice dropped, almost a whisper. They will not touch you, not while I draw breath. Episode 14, Whispers in the Court. By the time the sun dipped beneath the waters, the Naga palace had already shifted. Aran could feel it like invisible currents pulling against him, drawing him deeper into something he did not yet understand. Servants who once met his gaze with open curiosity now looked away, bowing too quickly. Conversations hushed when he passed through the halls. Rumors traveled faster than the river's own song. Kai told him first, his face pale, voice hushed as he straightened Aran's robes. They're saying the prince has grown distracted, that his attention lies not with the realm, but with a mortal. They say you have bewitched him. Aran's throat tightened. That's ridiculous. Kai's eyes flicked to him with pity. Truth doesn't matter here, Aran, only perception, and perception can drown even a prince. That night, Niran summoned Aran to the Great Hall. It was the first time Aran had seen the Naga court in full, a vast chamber lit by the glow of river stones, filled with nobles whose serpentine grace shimmered through their human forms. Their eyes followed him as he entered, cool and calculating. Niran stood at the dais, every inch the prince. His posture was sharp, commanding, but Aran could see the faint shadow of strain in the set of his jaw. A figure stepped forward from the assembly, a tall noble, draped in silver scales that caught the light like blades. His smile was thin. "My prince," the noble said, voice smooth, carrying through the chamber. "Whispers trouble the waters. They say your heart is no longer with your people, but with an outsider." His gaze slid toward Aran, sharp as a knife. "If such talk spreads, it could weaken the faith of those who look to you for strength." A ripple of agreement moved through the court. Aran's pulse thundered. He felt exposed, a pawn in a game he couldn't read. But before he could speak, Niran's voice cut through the hall, low and dangerous. "Do you dare question my devotion to my people?" His golden eyes glowed faintly, the power beneath his skin flickering like lightning in storm clouds. "Do you mistake silence for weakness?" The noble bowed, but his smirk never faltered. "Not weakness, my prince, only vulnerability." The word hung like a blade in the air. Later, when the hall emptied, Niran found Aran waiting in the shadows. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. "This is my fault," Aran whispered. "No." Niran stepped close, the mask of the prince slipping for only him. "It is theirs. They would use anything against me. You only gave them what they feared most, a truth they cannot control." Aran met his gaze, heart aching. "And what truth is that?" Niran's silence was answer enough. Episode 15, The Price of Allegiance. The days after the confrontation in the court were colder. Not in the air, the river realm was always the same soft twilight, but in the way others looked at him. The nobles no longer whispered when Aran passed. They smiled instead, smooth, polished, venom-laced smiles that made his skin crawl. Kai warned him first. "They will not strike at you openly. That would shame the prince. No, they will pull at the edges, slowly and quietly, until he is forced to let go." And soon, the schemes began. One morning, a servant accidentally brought him a cup of wine too bitter to drink. The next day, a silken robe meant for Aran appeared in tatters, slashed as though by claws. Small things, each deniable, each enough to remind him, "You do not belong." At council, the pressure grew sharper. Nobles couched their words in honey, but the meaning was poison. "The realm is restless," one said, voice thick with false concern. "It is not wise for a prince to divide his loyalty. Mortals are fragile things," another added smoothly. "Should harm befall this one, it would be most unfortunate for the court's dignity." The message was clear: send him away. Now, through it all, Niran stood unyielding. His voice carried authority that silenced the chamber, his eyes glimmering with defiance. But Aran could feel the weight pressing down on him, the tension coiling tighter with every challenge, every sly bark. Late one night, when they were alone, Aran broke the silence. "They'll never accept me. I'm a threat to you just by being here." Niran turned, the faint golden glow in his eyes flickering like firelight. "You are not the threat, Aran. They are. They fear that I might choose for myself, rather than bow to their endless demands." Aran's chest ached. "But what if they're right? What if my presence ruins you?" For a moment, Niran's mask cracked. He reached out, fingers brushing Aran's wrist, gentle yet unshakably firm. "Then let it ruin me. I will not give them the satisfaction of fear." The words should have comforted Aran, but instead, they rooted a deeper unease in his chest. For the first time, he wondered, not if he was in danger, but if loving Niran could destroy him from within his own throne. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, unseen eyes watched, waiting. Episode 16, The Weight of Goodbye. The court's whispers grew heavier each day, until Aran felt them pressing on his chest like stones. He watched Niran move through the chamber, shoulders straight, voice steady, every word a battle. But the strain in his eyes told another story. That night, when Kai slipped into his room with a lamp in hand, Aran whispered what he had been holding back for days. "I can't stay." Kai's usual grin faltered. "Aran, he's a prince," Aran said, voice breaking. "Every day I remain here, make it harder for him. They'll tear him apart because of me. If I love him, I have to let him go." Kai stood silent for a long moment. His eyes softened with something like pity, but also respect. "If this is what you've chosen, then I'll help you." Before dawn, They slipped through the hidden paths of the palace, toward the river tunnels that could take Aran back to the mortal world. The water was cool against the stone, and every step forward felt like a blade carving into Aran's chest. He thought of Niran's hands, his voice, the warmth of his smile, and forced himself to walk faster. But the river was not empty. Shadows stirred in the water. A cold hiss rippled through the chamber, and suddenly the spirits were upon them, dark, writhing shapes drawn to the mark that burned faintly against Aran's skin. Kai shouted, steel flashing in his hand as he fought to push them back. Run! But Aran stumbled, the claws of one spirit raking across his side. Pain seared him, blood spilling into the water. He gasped, vision blurring, his legs heavy as stone. No! Kai yelled, and once he looked at Aran's face, the pallor, the spreading blood, he knew there was no time. He must bring the help. Trembling, torn, Kai fled back into the tunnels, his footsteps vanishing into the dark. The last thing Aran remembered before the blackness claimed him was the cold water cradling his body. Niran came like a storm. The river itself seemed to recoil as he tore through it, golden eyes blazing with fury and fear. When he saw Aran floating in the current, pale and still, something inside him shattered. He lifted Aran as though he weighed nothing, pressing his hand against the wound, whispering ancient words that turned the water around them to light. Stay with me, Niran breathed, his voice breaking for the first time. Do not leave me like this. Episode 17. The River Between Worlds. The world was fading. Each breath came shallow, broken, a struggle against the blood pooling hot in my chest. My body felt heavy, too heavy to hold, as if the river itself was pulling me back into its depths. Somewhere above me, voices shouted Kai's desperate cries, the clash of naga steel, but it was all drifting further away. And then Niran, his hands pressed against my wound, firm, unyielding, trembling with the fear I had never seen in him before. His face hovered above mine, pale, stricken. Aran, he whispered, his voice breaking. Stay with me, please. Don't close your eyes. I wanted to answer, but my lips would not form words. The darkness pulled harder. Something flickered in his eyes, then golden, burning, otherworldly. His mask of calm shattered, replaced by desperation. He bent close, his forehead pressing against mine. I cannot lose you, he said, voice low, raw. If I do this, there is no return. You will not be only human anymore, but you will live. Do you understand? You will live. I thought of his smile by the river, of the quiet warmth of his hand brushing mine, of the storm in his eyes when he looked at me, as if I were the only thing that mattered in all his endless duties. Even through the haze of pain, I knew. I did not care what I became, if it meant I would stay with him. I tried to whisper, though the word barely left me. Yes. The next moment, his lips pressed against mine, not with passion, but with the fierce, binding need. His breath poured into me, not air, but something vast and ancient, flooding through my veins like liquid fire. It burned, it seared, and then cooled, like water flowing through every shattered piece of me, weaving me back together. The world dissolved. I saw visions, coils of endless rivers, temples carved into stone, nagas rising like mountains from the depths. And in all of it, his presence, a thread of gold binding me, pulling me back. When I gasped awake, I was not the same. The wound was gone, sealed as though it had never been. But my body, my skin glimmered faintly in the stormlight, scales flashing beneath the surface before vanishing again. My breath came too easily, as though the air was not the only thing I could breathe. And when I met his gaze, his pupils slit into golden lines. Mine echoed them just for a heartbeat. Niran's hand cupped my face, reverent, shaking. It is done, he said hoarsely. You are bound to me now, to the naga, to me. I should have been afraid, but all I felt was the weight of his touch, and the undeniable truth that something in me had already belonged to him long before this night. Episode 18. Between Skin and Scales. I could not sleep. Every time I moved, something felt different. My skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, like water catching fire. When I pressed a hand to my chest, I swore I felt a pulse beneath the skin that was not only mine, but something older, deeper. In the silence of the chamber, I asked myself the only question that mattered. Who am I now? I was no longer only Aran, the villager who once gathered herbs by the river, nor was I fully Naga, with their endless grace and power. I was caught between, straddling two worlds that had never meant to touch. Fear coiled in me. What if they rejected me? What if he regretted saving me this way? The door slid open, and Niran entered, carrying the quiet weight of his presence. His eyes sought me instantly, reading what I could not say. "You are not less for what you've become," he murmured, kneeling beside me. "You are more, and you are still mine." His hand brushed over mine warm, grounding, and though doubt gnawed at me, I leaned into his touch. For the first time since waking, I breathed without fear. But then his hand lingered, his thumb stroking along the edge of a scale that shimmered faintly on my wrist. His gaze softened, gold catching in the dark. "I was afraid," I whispered. "Afraid you would look at me differently." "I do," he said, voice low. My breath caught, until he leaned closer, forehead resting against mine. "I see you more clearly than ever." Something inside me cracked open. The fear, the disorientation, all of it melted under the heat of his nearness. I tilted my head before I could think, and his lips found mine. It was not a desperate kiss, not born of rescue or fear, but something steadier, deeper. His hands cupped the sides of my hips, firm, yet trembling faintly, as though he too had longed for this moment. I clung to his shoulders, afraid the world would tear us apart again, but his arms wrapped around me, pulling me into the certainty of his embrace. He started to press kisses to my neck. "You are mine," he whispered. "Not because of the mark, not because of the change, because I love you." In the same moment as he finished a sentence, I found myself, my body under him. His hand traced all over my body, his kisses touched the places no one ever did. The water started circulate around us. The movement resembled a dance. It was like water creating for us the curtain to protect us, to protect our moment. That night, not only our bodies, but also our souls intertwined. I was not alone anymore. Episode 19. The River's Embrace. The chamber was quiet except for the rustle of silk. I sat still, uncertain, as Niran unfolded a set of robes unlike any I had ever worn. They shimmered with threads of silver and deep green, the colors of river depths, the weight of them both regal and heavy with meaning. "These are not mine," I whispered, fingers brushing the fabric. "They are," Niran said softly, lifting the garment as though it were something sacred. "You stand at my side now. You deserve to be seen as such." He dressed me carefully, his hands steady even when mine shook. The fabric settled over my shoulders, cool at first, then warm against my skin. It did not feel like clothing alone, it felt like a declaration. When he fastened the final clasp, his hand lingered against my chest. "No matter what they say, no matter how they look at you, remember this: you are mine, and I will not let them take that from us." I swallowed hard and nodded, though my heart raced like a storm. The court had gathered, their stares cut sharper than blades. Whispers rippled like currents through the hall as I walked at Niran's side, scales flashing faint beneath my skin. A mortal changed, a human defiled. The words were not spoken aloud, yet I felt them pressing against me with every step. But then Kai stepped forward, bowing deeply. His voice rang clear through the chamber. "He carries Prince Mark, he carries Prince Heart, and he carries our future now." The silence cracked. One by one, the courtiers bent their heads, some reluctantly, some with reverence. A chant rose low and steady, like the hum of the river itself. Not rejection, but acknowledgement. The weight on my chest eased, no longer a stone dragging me under, but a current carrying me forward. For the first time, I saw not only fear in their eyes, but acceptance. I was not an intruder, I was his partner. The Naga people had chosen to embrace me. Episode 20. The Heart of the Storm. The palace was quiet, duties set aside, politics silenced. For once, it was only us. Niran stood at the balcony, river winds tangling his hair as gold against the night. When he turned to me, something softened, stripped bare of all the prince's weight. "You don't hate me, right?" he whispered. "For binding you, for dragging you into this world." "I should," I answered with little smirk on my face, stepping closer. My heart thudded. Human, Naga, whatever it was now, it beat only for him. But I don't, because before your power ever touched me, I was already yours. His breath caught. Then, with no court, no whispers, no storms between us, he pulled me close. The kiss was no longer desperate, like the one that saved my life. It was slow, certain, deep, the promise of 1,000 tomorrows. His arms held me as though I were the center of his endless realm, and for once I believed I could be. We stood together where river met sky, no longer prince and mortal, but simply Niran and Aran. Two souls, bound by choice, bound by love. The end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, so you won't miss the next story.